anything in that area. And it goes back to why our emphasis needs to be on educating parents, educating children, getting healthy communication going between older people and younger people, just how you use the net. And what I suppose really disturbs me, and it's going a little bit away from your question, but I just did want to say this. Like, I came across the internet in the mid-1990s, early 1990s, when I'm working for a community group called AidWatch. And I can remember being so excited by it. It really blew me away. And I imagine there's quite a few of you here who didn't grow up with the internet but come across it at some time in your life. But the generations coming through now are going to grow up with it. That is just part of their life. And that is so fantastic. The opportunities it provides, the connections, the education, just the choices that they can make in terms of their communities, in so many things that we're yet to come to grips with. And to have this nasty, sort of very cynical approach with putting a big brother in place that's going to make, you know, which is really sending a message out of you've got to be fearful, you've got to be relying on other people, which we know can't work, but it can add a really dangerous element, to my mind, to the democratic process. It is so destructive. And that's one of the things that I find very troubling, that when young people should be growing up with something that's so fantastic, that is just like we grew up with books and pens and typewriters and things like that, they grow up with this other tool that is just mind-blowingly amazing, and that they should be free to enjoy and welcome the great beauty of that. A question that I would like to put to you that came to me when I was listening to the question, which is again like, how do we get our message across? We've been using terms like no filter, no clean feed. Can I tell you, people don't understand it. They really don't, what that means. That's why I've used the term a lot in censorship, because people know that word. I think we've actually got to come up with language that makes it easier for the person walking down Church Street on Parramatta who uses the internet but has not heard about this, can relate to what we're talking about and will be worried about what they're doing. And I've got to say, I don't think the word no clean feed and no filter actually works. So I think that that's something we've got to take on board, because what we really need to do is find more allies in this campaign. And it was excellent to hear about the impact on minorities, but there's heaps of other, you know, the union movement. Imagine if Howard was in, or Abbott, we get Abbott back, who has said that he likes work choices still, and they get more hardline, and they happen to end up with control of the Senate again. I mean, who knows what's down the track? We never thought that the coalition would control the Senate, but they did for 4 years. They had control of the Senate. Imagine that happens in 10 years' time. What does Abbott do then to the union movement? Does he, you know, does he really close down a whole lot of their sites? And I tell you, the union movement's getting really savvy with their online campaigning now. So there's a potential ally that I think we need to reach out. At the moment, I just don't think it's on their radar at all. So identifying allies within the community movement, within the union movement, is absolutely vital. So there's many ways that we continue the struggle, and I think the point made by the person asking the question, you know, that frustration that I felt when the question was asked, is spot on. We've just got to get the message across. This is a con job. It's not about our children. It's a political agenda about trying to say we've delivered for family values. It's just not true.
I just wanted to say, following from what Josh said before, for me, like, the really most important thing about this is the issue of freedom, of basic human rights, the basic freedom of speech, which this outrageous net filter is set to take away from us incrementally. And I just think it's so great that there are people here today, but we need to have a much bigger movement about this. We need to have 100,000 people in the centre of Sydney protesting about this, because it is that big of an issue. And I just hope that everyone who comes here today makes a resolution to make this bigger next time. We need to have a massive protest, and it needs to be understood from the free speech position. Because once a system has been set up, whether there's a filter and they can just add items to the blacklist, there are other blacklists that they can bring in. There's one from the UK called the IWS blacklist. They can just import that. And this blacklist was already responsible for shutting down Wikipedia in the UK last year. And they'll start adding new criteria to the blacklist, such as racial vilification. I'm totally against racial vilification. But as soon as they start adding new criteria to the blacklist, it'll be very easy for sites that just have someone on a forum saying something obnoxious cause that site to go down, because they're going to expand it. And this concept of the secret blacklist is totally against democracy. It's totally against a free society. And that's where Truth News Australia is focused on opposing it. We know that child pornography is a terrible problem, but we don't even think that this filter is really about child pornography. We think it is about a creeping authoritarianism and totalitarianism in our society, which we have to basically stop right now before it gets any further. Otherwise it will creep and creep to the point that we can't even have events like we have today, because that would be called hate speech.
Yeah.
That says it beautifully. Just to add one thing that I think I've only just become aware of, and maybe not everybody is. So when these blacklists, which is what the internet censorship will rely on, some of them will be just bought from overseas countries. They just actually buy the list of what they've already deemed that they will ban. So, I mean, again, that's an extraordinary way to run your country in terms of freedom of speech. And every way you look at this, it's deeply wrong.
Every day there's something about cyberbullying, or, you know, a bunch of kids getting expelled from school because they bullied their teacher. And, I mean, you know, bullying is terrible. I was bullied like crazy. I know I'm 6 foot massive, but I was bullied like crazy, and it was really disturbing and all that. But it was part of life, and it's part of getting counselling and going through that and trying to educate and all the rest. And it's a big problem, it is. But it's about parent education and all the rest of it. Anyway, we see it escalating every day, and there's scams as well on the news every day on Today Tonight and all. This new scam where these eBay people are ripping off this and it's a real escalation. And then we cut to Rudd saying, oh yes, well, we're thinking about an online ombudsman. What does that mean?
Look, the online ombudsman is it could have been something that Rudd pulled out of the hat when he had a difficult question. But I think what your question raises, it's a reminder of how the government can build up support for any issue. And many of the stories that you've...
Through fear.
Yes, through fear. But the point that I wanted to add to your comment is that not all those stories have just happened to end up in the media. Like, so much of what you read in the media is placed there. It's what's called a drop. Where, and quite seriously, how this works is that the government, the opposition does it. I mean, the Greens, we go to the media with stories that we have all the time. But obviously the government is the one that has the big success. Particularly when they know, like in this case, they've got their legislation coming up, they've got to build support for it. How do you build support for it? You show that you've got a problem with the internet, and who has a solution to it? The government has a solution for all those problems on the internet. So I'm not into conspiracy theories, and I'm not saying that all those stories have been placed by the government. But I do think that the government would be out there wanting to create the atmosphere that there is serious problems with the internet that need to be managed. Lo and behold, we have an internet filter that will save your kiddies from any trouble. So that's the scenario that's being played out, and again it's a reminder for us to get active, because what have we got on our side is that we've got people and we've got to mobilise people.